everybody, welcome to the Homestead. How are you all doing? Staying in the house and staying safe from the coronavirus? Before you decided to stay safe in your home, did you run to the grocery store and stock up on beans and rice? And now you have no idea what to do with all of those dried beans. And every time you open the cupboard, they're staring at you, mocking you because you have no idea what to do with them. Well, today I'm going to show you and teach you an easy way how to cook those dry beans. And then I'm going to show you two meals to cook with those beans. I'm excited to share this knowledge with you, and I know you are going to absolutely love these two quick, easy, tasty meals. So let's get started. Now there are several ways how to cook beans. One way, you soak the beans overnight in water and then cook them the next day. Another way, you bring water up to a boil with the beans in there and then let them sit in the boiling water for an hour before you cook them. And the way I'm going to teach you today is the fastest and easiest of all, and that is using an Instant Pot or an electric pressure cooker. It is fast and it is super easy. So pinto beans are probably the most common kinds of dried beans that you guys picked up at the grocery store. So I'm going to be cooking pinto beans in the Instant Pot. Now you can do this with any other kind of dried beans, and so in the description of this video below I'm going to have extra information about how to cook other types of dried beans in the Instant Pot. But today we're going to do pinto beans, and that is the first type of beans we're going to use for one of our meals. So we're going to be cooking 1 pound of pinto beans. A lot of pinto beans are sold in 1 pound bags, so make sure you check on there. Otherwise, 1 pound of beans is about 2 cups. So I'm going to measure 2 cups into my Instant Pot bowl. Now I'm going to take a quick peek in here and look for any rocks. Occasionally there's a tiny stone or rock in here, and I'll tell you, you don't want to bite down on one of those on accident if you forget to look. So just look through here, look for any stones or little tiny rocks. And then we're going to rinse these. So I'm just going to put some water in here, swish them around like this a little bit, and then dump the water out, making sure that the beans don't come out. I'm going to do that 2 or 3 times just to make sure there isn't any dust or dirt or weird particles in there, and then we'll get started. All right, so rinsed beans. I figured you could do that on your own. So the rinsed beans go into the Instant Pot, and we're going to fill this up with 8 cups of fresh water. Filtered water is best, but use what you have. Now, because we're going to be using these beans to make a meal rather than just eat them plain, I'm not going to add any seasonings, but if you were going to make them as like a side or a main portion of a meal, just, you know, the way they are, you could add onions, garlic, a bay leaf, salt, any of those yummy things you could add right now, but we're not going to use them that way. We're going to incorporate them into a meal, so I'm just going to cook them plain. So they're ready to go. We're just going to put the top on. And on my Instant Pot, I'm going to press the manual button and adjust it to 25 minutes. Now, my manual button automatically puts the pressure on high. If your Instant Pot, that doesn't work that way, then adjust the pressure up to high, okay? So, 25 minutes, mine turns on automatically. 25 minutes, we're gonna let that cook. And then we're gonna let it come down, we're gonna let the pressure come down on its own. If the pressure hasn't come down on its own in 20 minutes, then release pressure. But otherwise, let it come down on its own. So, the beans are cooking, now we just need to wait. Okay, our beans are done, and the pressure has come down, so I'm gonna take off the lid. Be careful, because it'll be hot and steam will come out. There's still quite a bit of water in there, so we're going to drain the water off of the beans. Be careful. The bowl's hot. Once the water's out, I'm gonna pour it back into the bowl here so then I can start cooking with it. Now that the beans are all done, I'm gonna teach you the very first recipe for the video. Today's first recipe is bean tacos, pinto bean tacos. I'm excited, our family loves them. Now you can see that 1 pound of pinto beans dried, that makes quite a bit of beans. You wouldn't have to use all of these beans for this recipe. You could definitely cut this in half and then cut all the rest of the ingredients in half, but I'm gonna make this because it's so good as leftovers too, okay? So if you wanna make this but don't wanna use an entire pound of beans, just cut everything in half. This is very simple. You're basically just going to dump in a couple more ingredients and some spices, heat it up again, and dinner is served. Okay, so we got our beans in the Instant Pot, and I'm gonna add 2 cups of salsa. Now this salsa is, all the ingredients are from our garden, but you may not have that at home. If you have salsa at home from the grocery store, that's perfect too. So just put in 2 cups of salsa. After this, it's just seasonings and spices. We're gonna start with some salt. We're gonna add 1 teaspoon of salt. This is pink Himalayan salt. Now, all of our salt and a lot of our spices, I buy in bulk from Azure Standard. And if you're interested in learning more about that, I'll put the link in the description below. So 1 teaspoon of salt. We may need to add a little bit more at the end. We're going to add chili powder, 2 tablespoons of chili powder. We're gonna add 1 tablespoon of cumin, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. Now, if you have garlic cloves on hand, you can use garlic cloves, but just because this is from the pantry, we're gonna use garlic powder. We're going to gently mix this all up in our bowl. Mix thoroughly so all of those seasonings and spices get mixed in well. Now the beans are still hot, so as long as these are mixed up really well, they're ready to serve. If you want them a little bit more mushy than this, you can just use your potato masher and mash these up, but we're gonna use them just like this. The main ingredient of our first meal is finished. We just need to gather the rest of what we're going to be using to make the bean tacos. Well, everything that our family likes to have on tacos, we have all prepared here. So it's time to make a couple tacos, make a plate of dinner so that we can sit down and enjoy it. We just happen to have hard shell tacos in the house, taco shells in the house right now. We don't always have them. So I'm using hard shell taco shells. I'm just going to plate some of these with these beans in here. They look fabulous. They're gonna taste amazing. Second taco. Now we are using some of our homemade cumin flavored farm cheese from Our Cow Hope. Homegrown lettuce, of course, from the greenhouse. Little cilantro, also from the greenhouse raised bed garden. And some homemade sriracha sauce from last year's red jalapenos. Now this meal is very versatile because you all may not have all of these ingredients in your house. So instead of taco shells, you could use flour tortillas and make burritos. You could just make some white rice and have this on top of rice, quinoa, anything in the house that you have that could go well with this. We even sometimes have Mexican baked potatoes. These toppings on top of a baked potato would be amazing. So make sure you try lots of different things. So it's a moment of truth. Time to try one of the tacos before I let the family in. Let me tell you how it tastes. So good, you guys. I hope that you try these with the pinto beans. Make some tacos or burritos for your family with the dry pinto beans that you have no idea what to do with that you picked up at the grocery store. Okay, now one more recipe for another meal using dry beans. So let's get started on the second recipe using dried beans from the cabinet. Now this time we're gonna use black beans. I'm sure that you grabbed some of those too when you picked up your pinto beans, and I'm sure they are also in your cabinet mocking you because you don't know how to cook with them. So today I'm gonna tell you one really amazing, tasty dish that is super simple, and it's also gonna be using the Instant Pot. I don't often share with you cookbooks that I really enjoy, but I want to share this one with you today. It's the Indian Instant Pot cookbook. You can find it on Amazon. I'll make sure to link that in our Amazon store. We absolutely love Indian food, and since we've moved kind of out to the country, we don't get Indian food very often from Indian restaurants. We absolutely loved it when we lived in the Phoenix area, so it inspired me to start trying to make more and more Indian food at home. Now, it's not complicated, you guys. Some of the words are different, but they taste amazing, and a lot of the ingredients aren't as hard to find as you would think. So today, we're using a recipe out of this cookbook. I'm gonna say it terribly. It's called Langar Kai Dal, and I love dals. They're very comforting and just really nice and filling and nutritious. So we're gonna do that today, and it's gonna be easy. So like I said, we're starting out with black beans. Now I do want to tell you that black beans, these typical black beans, aren't usually used in Indian food, but I am going to substitute it because that's what I have around and it still tastes amazing. Okay, we're going to start off with 1 cup of black beans. Now I am also adding 1/2 cup of dried chickpeas. If dried chickpeas are not something that you have in your house, just substitute more black beans. We need to look for rocks or tiny stones again. So I'm just gonna take a quick look. Make sure there's nothing in there that we're gonna break our teeth on, and I am gonna rinse these just like I rinsed the pinto beans. Now that they are rinsed, we're going to add 5 cups of filtered water. That's 4, 5. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. And again, I'm using pink Himalayan salt. And 1 teaspoon of turmeric, or turmeric, however you say that. Or turmeric. Some people say turmeric. I say turmeric. 1 teaspoon. Mix that up. Makes it a gorgeous yellow color in there. Now we're going to put this in the Instant Pot. Put the top on. Now again, we want this to be on high pressure, so on my machine I'm just going to hit manual and I'm going to increase the time to 30 minutes. We're going to let that cook. Right now I'm going to start some rice. So this is a time where you will start whatever kind of rice that you like to eat. We are going to start basmati rice. While the beans and the rice are cooking, we're just going to mix up some things that when the beans are done, we'll mix in and it will make it taste even more amazing. So first we need to brown some onions in a pan. I'm going to be using about a tablespoon of coconut oil just in a pan. You can see I buy my coconut oil in bulk too. This is 1 gallon of coconut oil from Azure Standard. And the recipe calls for 1 diced onion. We grow all of our onions and then we chop them and freeze them. So I'm going to use about a cup of chopped onion. That's what I'm going to say is the equivalent of 1 onion. We're going to saute that until the onions start to brown a little bit around the edges, and then we're going to mix in some spices. Now while it's still warm in there, I'm going to add some seasonings, and the heat of the pan are going to kind of wake up those flavors. We're going to start with some powdered ginger. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon. Now this is a half a teaspoon, so I'm going to use 2 of them. Just put that right in there. Ginger. Garlic powder, same thing, a teaspoon. Now a lot of these seasonings you can get, fresh, like the garlic and ginger, but because I'm trying to use things that are in our pantry, I'm going with the powdered versions. Half a teaspoon of turmeric, a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. Can you tell that this is going to be very flavorful with all of these seasonings? We're going to put a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. You can put up to a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, but we don't like things that spicy around. 1 teaspoon of salt. Let's mix that all up. We're also going to add some tomato and a little bit of the tomato juice. Now the recipe calls for water, but I figured since I'm going to be using canned tomatoes, I might as well substitute a little bit of the tomato juice from my canned tomatoes instead of water. I can all of our own tomatoes, homegrown tomatoes, and this is a quart-sized jar. If you have just regular canned diced tomatoes at home, you'd be using a pint size or the small can of diced tomatoes rather than a big can. So I'm only going to be using half of this, and I'll save the rest of it for another meal. Okay, so I'm going to strain off a 1/4 cup of the tomato juice. And the rest of it I'm going to save and strain into just an empty jar and keep that in the refrigerator because that is very useful in soups and other dishes, and it's actually really pretty good to drink. And then I'm going to add half of what's left, which is probably a cup to a cup and a half, into our onion and seasoning mixture. Add that and the juice. We're going to mix that all up, combine it really well. And we're going to turn the heat back on. It doesn't have to be on very high. We're going to heat that up to a boil and allow those tomatoes and onions to cook down a little bit. The liquid to evaporate just a tiny bit so it makes almost like a thick sauce that we're going to add to our beans when they're all done. Everything is done. It's just a matter of pulling it all together. So first, let's bring over the beans. Now you can see that there's quite a bit of water still in here. It's quite dark because of the black beans. So I'm gonna pour off quite a bit of that water. I'm not sure how to explain to you how much I'm gonna pour off, but I'm gonna pour most of that off. Now I left some of the liquid in there. You can see there's a little bit of liquid yet in there. But now I'm gonna take a potato masher and I'm gonna mash some of that up because we want something that is kind of, I don't know, dip consistency or a thick stew. We don't want soup. We want something that will be nice on top of rice. If you wanted to use an immersion blender rather than a potato masher, you could do that too. Okay, I think that's good. I want to show you the texture. See how it's kind of like dip almost, you know? So let's grab the onions and the tomato mixture. We're gonna put that in there. Mix that in. It's gonna be great. Take a look at that. Let's bring the rice over and get a bowl, and then we can serve and take a taste. Now this type of dish is considered a dal, and a dal can either be served with rice or with naan, which is Indian flatbread. This dal tastes great with both, but because I have a lot of rice on hand, because of stocking up for staying home, we're gonna serve it with rice tonight, which is perfect for you guys too if you also stocked up on rice. So I am gonna serve the rice on the bottom of a bowl. You can put it on the side of a plate. This is brown basmati rice. And I'm gonna top that with some of this dal. And remember, I had some extra leftover cilantro from the garden. I'm just gonna put a pinch on top for some extra flavor. It'll add a little bit of freshness. Okay, let's take a taste. Make sure to get both rice and dal. I love the combination of all of those seasonings that we put in this dish. It tastes just like the Indian food that I remember from the big city. So you guys, I hope that you use some of your pantry staples to try this recipe and the tacos from before. Don't be afraid of dry beans. It's okay, and they're actually easy to make. You guys, I hope that you enjoy these two recipes, and I hope it inspired you to make some fantastic tasting food for your family using pantry staples that you have at home. If you enjoyed this video, and if you know other people who are struggling with what to make with your dry beans and your rice, make sure you share this on your social media so other people can enjoy it and learn as well. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by the homestead. Take care and God bless.